My name is Noah Irvin. I'm from Guelph, Ontario, and I'll be 24 in about 3 weeks' time or so. The issue that I'm passionate about and have been for the last number of years has been on mental health and addictions, more specifically getting all levels of government to create ministries of mental health and addictions to provide a centralized and coordinated focus for mental health supports and services, and and really trying to create a space of accountability. I started this when I was 17, based on or due in part to losing my parents. My mom in 2005 died by suicide, and my father in 2015 died by an accidental overdose. So that's really the catalyst for why I started this. I began in 2017 by writing letters. So I was 17 years old at the time, and I began by writing letters to federal parliamentarians. At the time, there were 336 sitting members of parliament. Each one of them received a letter from me asking for the federal government to take a stronger leadership role on this. Beyond the letters, I was privileged to speak and engage with parliamentarians from the Prime Minister, Ministers of Health, and a whole host of other individuals at the provincial level, but also at the federal level. Again, trying to push for some centralization of mental health and addictions services in this country. And currently, my advocacy journey has transitioned into a new space where I decided that it would be important to share my story in a little bit more detail, and that's where I write or I've written my memoir, and it's called Learning to Live, and details the loss of my mom and dad, but also that advocacy journey that I'm highlighting here today. I think it's important when we talk about any issue that we do talk positives and negatives. There's no question mental health and addictions is more discussed in society today than when I first started. I think COVID and the post-COVID world will force greater discussion on this. And I think it is forcing greater discussion on this, which when I first started, this was not really something on the radar of many governments. And I think in the next number of years, I hope that we are having more conversations on a broad and sustained campaign to improve mental health and addiction services in this country. The work that I've done has been national in focus, but I think it's important to recognize that advocacy doesn't have to be national in focus. You don't have to do what I did. It can be a local issue. When I was speaking in civics classes, one of the examples I gave was if you have a neighbor with a mobility issue and a piece of sidewalk that's broken or chipped or doesn't have a curb cut to get into the roadway, and you call a city councilor, that's advocacy. That's advocacy work. That's trying to improve your community for the better. Advocacy work can also take the form of philanthropic work. It doesn't have to be always advocating to government. It can be taking on an issue. The issue that I am obviously passionate about is mental health, and segueing that into some form of philanthropic activity. And the scholarship that I set up at my high school is for students like myself who'd lost a parent or both, and who are going to post-secondary. Youth involvement in politics is important. Youth involvement in advocacy is important, but also youth involvement in philanthropy is important. There are not enough youth taking up that mantle. There are not enough youth taking on the I don't want to call it a responsibility, but the action of giving back in a monetary sense to community. I know service providers, um, like volunteer organizations such as Rotary, are struggling to get the next generation of philanthropy. And I think it's important that when we look at being engaged with regard to civics, that we remember that there are other avenues of engagement.